podcast excellence since 2005. This is the King of Podcasts radio network, kingofpodcasts.com.
The answer...
As you can see, I am repping Team VMA, and tonight, VMA stands for the Voluptuous Megan Awards. Clearly, I deserve a gold medal for being a bad bitch.
What is the single reason why I did not watch the VMAs for the first time in 40 years? Exactly.
The King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Broadcasters Podcast. Here is the King of Podcasts.
I barely tolerated Keke Palmer last year. Wasn't it her last year? But the thing is, it's not even so much Megan Thee Stallion. She's just the top of the cake, the icing of what is so wrong with watching the VMAs. Now, I don't want to go ahead and diss the artist that performed at the Video Music Awards last night. But what I'm saying is this. It's very convoluted. Look, MTV does not care about music. Okay? They have their alternate channels that just ramble on music videos all the time. They've had that for 20 plus years. Okay? When they had channels like The Box and BET and VH1 and YouTube took away their livelihood, yeah, I get it. The music videos that we used to watch and we were reveled by, we have to watch somewhere else. But even now, you know, anybody that even does music videos anymore, they're pretty high-end artists that still think that music videos still matter. Meanwhile, everybody else is grinding away on streaming services, trying to make money, getting TikTok videos and Instagram videos and whatever they can to get the music out there to the audience, to the public. But as I talked about last week on the program, it's pretty clear that radio and outlets like MTV are no longer there to support all music artists. The ones that should be in the mainstream, the crossover artists. Not going to happen. The crossover is happening now. When you look at what Spotify, Apple Music, SiriusXM, I'll even give them a little bit of credence. That's where you're getting the music from. Is it all because of the fact that music units don't sell anymore? And since that's no longer a thing, and maybe there's not a commission or there's not any payola to be made off of selling records, vinyl, nobody's buying cassettes. Nobody's buying CDs much anymore. Story came out about the fact that there is supposedly a revival for every physical format, and that's Gen Z consumers. Stories from Music Radar. In the mid-year report of the Recording Industry Association of America's, CD sales have totaled $236 million, nearly 3 times the income generated by downloads at $87.8 million. Right. 2023... 36.8 million physical units sold, an increase from 2022 of 2.7%. But that's also after years of falling sales. And by the way, the fact that it's 36 million items sold, if I had to go back and look for the amount of physical units of music going back, I mean, as far back as you want to go. Now, I'm looking at the Recording Association of America, the RIA's listing of physical units going back as far back as 1973. And here's what we got. So if we're going to look back and look at what is just physical units. CDs and CD singles would go along, from 1984 all the way up till, let's say it's still significant up until about 2015. 2001, you had 800 million CDs sold around the U.S. 800 million. And this story I'm taking from right now is praising the fact that we're getting, what did they say? 36? Did I read that right? 36.83 million in 2023. 20 years later, from 800 million. No wonder radio and MTV just don't care anymore. Because remember, 2001, we still had some music videos. We had Total Request Live that was still very much prominent in its heyday. and a plethora of artists and genres and formats and music all over the place. It wasn't that hard for somebody to go ahead and get distributed from one label onto a major distributor because the deregulation, all the consolidation of record labels had not happened yet. Not by 2001. But that's the part that everybody's going to understand. Okay, vinyl is rising in sales, and vinyl has been something that Gen Z folks have been buying. They'll get themselves a recorder, they'll get themselves a record player, and they'll go ahead and play along with that. But still, I look back at the rest of the listings here, and I look back at pre-streaming, when streaming really got hot. Like I said, 2015, 2016 is when I started making the change myself. In 2016, singles that were downloaded digitally accounted for $1.1 billion and 12% of total revenue. Now, revenues for the paid subscription format are $10 billion. They account for almost 60% of music revenue. There we go. That says everything right now. A complete changeover. But it's not as if, as this Music Radar article says, oh, people are still buying physical units. Well, who's out there trying to help them? I mean, the part is, there are certain artists that still sell physical units because they're so big out there, right? That they can still go ahead and be able to sell music of that format. At the moment, the top selling artists for physical music units right now are Taylor Swift and Billie Eilish in 2024. In vinyl sales, they say that artists will earn over $5.2 billion from vinyl alone in 2024, 113% increase in sales. But again, they're getting double that from streaming. It might not be making as much, but there's something to be said about if physical units can still make more money, why isn't there anything being done right now to encourage more of it? I mean, do you feel like people just don't want to go ahead and buy it anymore because people are not going to be interested in, if they got to listen to it on their phones or anywhere else, any other device, they're not going to go ahead and use something else to go and listen to music? I guess. But the one thing is that there was a time when MTV, as a channel, acting like radio from 1981 up until the early 2000s, they were kind of helping as a hedge. It was important to get MTV airplay. Well, not anymore. And for radio, it doesn't matter at all. Well, you look at the artists that they had on and that performed at the MTV Video Music Awards, and, you know, there's quite a bit of going back in time to enjoy what is out there now, right? And the problem is that it's so commercialized. It was okay before, but now it's like you can feel. I always felt like when I used to watch the American Music Awards, Dick Clark kind of gave me that feeling of, well, their group was like, they're going to put the most popular stars out there anyway, because that was just something they were going to do. It's on a big network, ABC, every year. They did it for 30 years. And, that made sense to kind of put the show like that. MTV was much more of the grassroots. It was much more rebellious. They obviously did more to create more of a feeling of excitement, of unpredictability. I mean, the MTV Video Music Awards were just so much better before. I don't know. They didn't even do the event in Radio City Music Hall. They did it in Elmont, New York at the UBS Arena. So they still do it, but then you're looking at the artists that are out there. A lot of legacy artists, with Lenny Kravitz, with LL Cool J, who's back now with new music, Eminem, who has also new music. And then this thing where they're trying to bring in artists of different genres that people don't even pay attention to, because where are they listening to? On streaming? And then if there are certain artists right now that people will be looking forward to catching right now, but they're not because they're a little behind in the game. Now, of course, the very top stars, the Sabrina Carpenters and the Chaperones are now finally caught up into the mix here because of the fact that, well, they just made it in time to be noticed, to be recognized, and for the music to be out there for, more than a few months. Very viral stars, you're going to see not so many of them yet. That's just not going to happen. There is no MTV Video Music Award bump that comes as a result of this. If you watch the Brit Awards over there in the UK, if you are listening to and watching the shows over there, or you see the concerts that are going on in the UK, like, when BBC Radio has their big weekends, then the comparison of what the UK does, in America, we have the iHeartRadio Music Festival and their jingle balls and all that stuff. Crap. And it's all these bigger stars that are corporate controlled. They're under big labels. That's just the way they are. One of the things the Video Music Awards have been doing right now in the last 4 years to help boost their ratings, because their ratings were under 3 million viewers and they got over 4 million viewers this year, is sprinkle Taylor Swift with awards all through the night. And if you look at the graphic this week, she got 6 or 7 VMAs. Tying Beyonce as the top VMA winner of all time. Katy Perry gets the Video Vanguard Award. LL Cool J gave a 40th anniversary salute to Def Jam. And Chappell Roan and Sabrina Carpenter are the rising stars. They are the ones that are in this mix. Lisa, previously of Blackpink, now she's a star trying to build herself up, but it's really just like a whole lot of a corporate push-up to try to get her noticed. Anita, who has been very much commercialized now, more than ever. Camila Cabello, who, her album right now that's come out has not done well this year. She's struggled a lot. Glorilla, who is, I don't even know, I guess attachment to other rappers out there, that would be a Megan Thee Stallion or others, somehow gets broken into this, and, she has her thing. Eminem performs. Shawn Mendes, he's now back with a new song that's not even charting. I think it's charting somewhere in the bottom end of the Hot 100 in the UK. I don't even know if it's charting here, but it's not good. But I guarantee you that the song nobody knows he performs is not going to do pretty well. And, again, being not attached to Camila Cabello probably doesn't help him out either. Lenny Kravitz performed Are You Gonna Go My Way with Quavo, of all people. Halsey's back, but again, she is also struggling right now to get her music off the ground. I mean, hell, she just took the song Lucky from Britney Spears. It did not, I think it charted for 1 week and dropped right off the Hot 100. No interest. So Halsey's already struggled. And remember, she's one of the people that really complained a couple of years ago because of the fact that now she has to make TikTok videos. Her label requires her to make viral videos that will get songs to pick up steam, and then they'll decide to release a single or an album. So she complained about that, and I support her on that end. Megan Thee Stallion, obviously, she got to perform quite a bit, and yes, very outlandish attitude, the way she's presented. She's annoying. She is chalk on a chalkboard when I hear her. I just can't do it. LL Cool J comes out with Public Enemy, so this is going back. Benson Boone, who has been all over the place. I don't see him as being that very talented, but he's over, and he's got a couple of songs now. Beautiful Things got up to number 2 in the Hot 100, and that was a song he wanted to get. They definitely wanted to have him play, so they did, and the song was out there for months upon months. And of course, in the radio fashion, he wasn't known yet, and it took a while for radio to pick him up. But now, the song's 8 months, 9 months old, and Beautiful Things, man, they're playing it like it's brand new when people are probably very much tired of it. Raul Alejandro's out there. It's like, okay, here's your token Hispanic reggaeton artists. We can't get Bad Bunny this year. We're not going to get, Maluma this time. We're going to get Raul Alejandro. It's just a token reggaeton artist. They don't care. And it's one thing that really disappoints me that they just, okay, we'll focus on some of these other artists that just are going to sprinkle them around. Here's Tyla. There's the Afrobeats. We don't need anything else, right? Last year we had Rima. We don't need anybody else. It's just whatever. So that's what they do. Katy Perry gets a big performance here. And this is basically like her swan song to try to like reinvigorate. Like, it's honestly, I feel like this is like the defibrillator on trying to inject life back into her music career, because she came out with a new album that's coming up right now, and then she goes off and uses Women's World that tanked as the first single, then Lifelines, which it's okay, but it's also dropped. And what does she have to do this time around? Well, Katy Perry had to go ahead and play her best hits. So, I Kissed a Girl, I'm Him, He's Mine, Firework, California Girls, Dark Horse. She has to go ahead and perform all the backtracks from 10 years ago, because right now it's just not working. Her new music, no, don't even worry about doing anything with it. She just sang all her classics, nothing for the new album, because no one cares. Karol G's out here, but again, it's like, all right, you bring her out here and, you know, another artist that, if you are not paying attention to radio, radio's not playing her. If they are, it's because some of the songs that she has, like she has quite a bit of a catalog right now. But, you know, they also know that she's a draw. They brought her in, but, you know, she's been around. She's, you know, a big star now. Raul Alejandro has also been made a big star because their songs went very much mainstream. They're no longer in the lower tier of reggaeton or just of Latin music in general. Chappell Roan, you know, she's getting big performances, getting noticed. Obviously, people will go and watch for her. She did Good Luck Babe. When they had her out there to perform, play the hit. Play the hit, Chappell. Don't worry about My Kink is Karma. Don't worry about Phenomenon. Oh, they didn't even let her play HOTTOGO, right? No, play Good Luck Babe. Do that in a medieval thing, for whatever reason. And all anybody's going to remember is not her performance, but the fact that she snapped back at a photographer. I'm not saying anything bad about her. Come on. I took 2 episodes of The Praise and Debaucherous defending the young lady because of the attacks that she gets from fans out there and how, you know, she's justified in her feelings about that. Sabrina Carpenter, it's a no-brainer that she's out here right now. She's currently got the new album, Short and Sweet. And she's got, you know, several songs in the Hot 100 Top 10. In the UK, she has been the number 1, 2, and 3 songs with Taste, Please, 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 and Espresso, 1, 2, and 3. 2 weeks in a row. Could be going for a third. Who knows? So, Taste is now a song that's gotten as a single to the radio. Good. But Sabrina Carpenter's always been a radio person. Like, she's always been working down there, digging in the trenches, trying to get her songs noticed by radio. But radio's been trying to support her, but nothing ever took off the ground. It's not until we get some of the songs here and something that's very much risque, a much different feel of a pop record, that finally gets her off the ground. Plus the help of the boost of the opening act being for Taylor Swift's Eras Tour. Yeah, all the pieces fall into place for her to be a big pop star. And now she's made it. And this is basically her crowning peak of her of her fandom right now. And good for her. You know, I mean, it's like she made it here and she did a few things to kind of get things off the ground and, you know, get people interested. She's kissing an alien while she's out there. That's like one of the most memorable moments of the night. Except for Megan Thee Stallion, who's just trying to get the attention. Oh, dress up like Britney Spears in her awards performance for I'm a Slave for You, right? All this stuff going on, going backwards. That's all it is. And MTV, in this whole case, celebrating their 40th Video Music Awards ceremony. And it's like 40 years later, yeah. You know, I mean, music and radio have gone through a lot. And music in general and where we listen to it and how we receive it has gotten so much interest. See, there's still room, in my opinion, where music as a complement to radio, where music is played and new music is played and different types of music get played that go into the mainstream or they're crossover or they're very important. We get to hear from them. Let me tell you something. Of a year where country is so prominent, okay, So Beyonce got snubbed from the CMAs for Cowboy Carter. And MTV doesn't consider to have Beyonce perform Texas Hold'em, or, I mean, Post Malone's out there performing with Taylor Swift for Fortnite, right? But did he perform any of his music, his new album, F1 Trillion? No. Nope, nothing like that. Noah Khan's not being considered. Shabuzi was there, and I believe he performed, right? But that's like, okay, he's number one for like 8 weeks. I think it would make sense for you to go ahead and put him out there. I mean, he's got the number one song in the country, and he is getting played on radio a lot. So, like, yeah, duh, put him out there. But it's the most obvious names. This year with Kendrick Lamar and the level of music he's put out, him and Drake, you didn't put anything out them with those two. Tommy Richmond's had a very good year. We didn't see him out there yet. As I look at the current list of top streaming artists right now, at this moment, there's Taylor Swift, but Drake, nowhere to be heard. But of course, he's probably too big to go to this. Bad Bunny, The Weeknd. Hey, Weeknd's got a new album coming out. Why don't we hear from him? Why don't we hear his new single coming out for that? Like, what's going on there? Ariana Grande's on this list. I mean, you could have had her out there promoting Wicked, also promoting the album that she had put out. Nothing about that. And then when you look at some of the artists that they had just chose not to go ahead and perform, no Billie Eilish performing this year. The Lady Gaga Bruno Mars song. Why don't we get those two to go and get them together and go and perform, right? That's just got to be a big song that's coming out there. What's going on here? I'll put it to you like this as well. You had songs that became very viral this year in the U.S., according to TikTok. Tommy Richmond, $1 Million Baby, never heard from him. Nasty Tinashe, never heard from her. And then when you're looking at artists that could be performing at MTV on the Spanish side, well, you could have had Floyd Manor and Chris MJ, who's been there, also super hot right now. You could have had Peso Pluma play once again, but I guess not this time. Because Peso Pluma was the token Spanish person they had last year, right? But this is what they kind of just do. This is the modus operandi right now, where radio and MTV, the corporate control of these companies right now, to not really care what's going on. I mean, for MTV, the Video Music Awards, I feel like it's almost like it's a requirement. They have to continue to keep that show going, and they have to go and put it on every channel possible to just crank out 4 million viewers. And of course, they want to put it behind a paywall. They want to make sure that not a lot of people can catch the show. Same thing with the BET Awards, among others. Doesn't make much of a difference. The premiere telecast got 3.11 million viewers across 13 networks. And then encore showings grew the audience to 4.09 million, up 8%. I mean, on social media, it did get a little bit of attention. 66.7 million social interactions, which beats the Super Bowl and only second to the presidential debate on Tuesday. And last year, the award show got 46 million social impressions. But the reason why they're doing it? Most likely because of Taylor Swift. And that's it. Some Sabrina Carpenter, some Chappell Roan, but that's it. But how much have they actually done, MTV or radio, to help promote those stars? It took a while for Sabrina Carpenter to get off the ground, to get her music out there and get noticed, because even now, today, if you look at their charts, you know, it takes a while for the music to get up to where it needs to be. So Chappell Roan, Good Luck Baby is now number one airplay in radio at this moment. Sabrina Carpenter has Please, Please, Please and Espresso that have been out there for months prior to her album release that are here at the moment. But Taste, no, not yet. When you look at what radio is playing right now and what they consider to be important songs they're going to play at the moment, they're so behind the game. But again, secondary market, and MTV also looks like a secondary market, except for the fact that they are able to go and bring out Chappell Roan and Sabrina Carpenter and Taylor Swift to kind of make it look like, well, we are caring about what's going on. We are in sync with what's going on with music today, with the music that you control, but not all the other artists that are out there. No, of course not. No. And then the other thing that I also just don't care for, but this is my own pet peeve, is that, you know, when we have to use politics to be involved in all these things that are going on here, right? And that's because it's being used as a crux to kind of like help get some kind of credible reputation. I don't know, increase their aura or whatever it might be. Katy Perry, poor thing, she's being put out there like an object, okay? Wearing next to nothing, getting closer to 40 years old. QR code on the back of her lower back to promote. And there's a lot of things going behind with Katy Perry that people are really not feeling very much up for, because there's a lot of criticism on her. The fact that, you know, she talks about women's empowerment, female empowerment, and, you know, not taking the criticism and just safeguarding your mental health. Pause, touch grass, do what you're born to do. And the thing is that there's a lot of complaining about the fact that she's been working with producer Dr. Luke on her newest album, who's been accused of drugging and raping Kesha, the artist that, you know, right now she has music, doesn't get put out there much because she's kind of been outcast by the music industry for calling them out. You know, of course, there's the double standard in place. No surprise there. But MTV, it's embarrassing that they have to go and promote the fact that they got 4 million viewers, but 3 million for the initial telecast on 13 channels. A couple of them were Spanish. It's embarrassing. But this is also just telling you that, much like radio, MTV's Video Music Awards might get some virality for a day, but it's not very memorable. Not like it used to be. We all remember what it used to be like. Some of us that were been around, you could be millennials, you could be in my area of Gen X, you can remember how good MTV was. Because MTV, much like radio, the talent that will be hosting programming on MTV, or the talent that you would listen to on radio stations, there was a cool factor to them. There was a factor on how they melded well with music artists. How often do you hear any of these artists right now do interviews that are any good on other radio stations in America? They don't. And if they are, they're all this kumbaya shit. I can't stand it. Ryan Seacrest does the kumbaya interviews with these folks. If I go listen over to Jack Saunders or, you know, Scott Mills or whoever over on BBC, much more entertaining. I know I keep pumping them up, but you know what? They just do a much better job. And their numbers prove it. I told it last week. They get more listeners. I looked at what, you know, stations like Z100 or whatever there is in New York, and they also can get a live streaming audience that can listen all over the world. But if you're in New York City, that's one particular area. Like I was looking right now at the highest cum radio stations around the country, and they're all in New York, Chicago, or Los Angeles, because there's competition. There's a lot of people that can be listening to the radio the way they are, and that might still matter. But for the rest of the world, no, doesn't matter. Like to think that Miami be what, the number 11 market, I think it is still, and it's irrelevant. So many stations are corporatized and have nobody live. And if anybody that's there live, I'm embarrassed to say that they're actually doing anything live at all. Like if you listen to some of the folks that are hosting radio shows now, supposedly, well, they're just getting like a couple minutes of time every shift that they have that they are voice tracking. And if they're talking about anything at all, it's all promo. It's nothing generic. It's nothing original. Nothing. It's all contrived, written, scripted, planned, plotted, and nothing organic at all. It's embarrassing. Very much embarrassing. I'm looking at the iHeartRadio Music Festival they have coming up. And when I look at the out of touch they are, I mean, they got a lot of artists that are legacy. So like for concerts, I guess that would make sense to have so many stars that have a lot of catalog to work off of. But like how many new artists are out here? Camila Cabello's performing with A$AP Rocky, Big Sean, Gwen Stefani, Dua Lipa, Doja Cat, Halsey Hozier, Keith Urban, Shabuzi, and then we can go move down the line to other artists, but that's kind of the idea we're talking about here. The thing is that the MTV Video Music Awards never had to go ahead and go down this route. Like, why is it that they're hurting so badly and that people have lost favor in watching these shows? It's a number of reasons why. Now, some people might go out there and say that might be because of the political slant that some people might have and how they put their politics on their sleeve. And they have to use their chance to get an award to make a statement. I could care less. What I think it is that the artists that are chosen to be brought onto these award shows and the fact that it doesn't fall in line with the habits and the tastes of people that are streaming regularly. You know, I mean, who's the audience they're trying to go after here? Are they even trying to go after younger listeners? Probably not. My opinion is, for MTV, you know, they don't care. They run ridiculous, this 50 some odd hours a week on that show, on that network, with what, True Life and, you know, Teen Mom and things like that. And I forget what else they have out there that they've added onto their lineup. Not much. They just want to desperately try to put that show out there for anyone to watch, because they do get sponsorships for it. But the problem is that, yeah, sure, easy to go ahead and get you enough people to go ahead and go to the event and watch it live. Imagine those tickets can't be that much. But then you might see your favorite artist there, something like that. You know, it's like one of those things. But for the most part, I don't think people look to MTV anymore. I mean, yeah, we had the Video Music Awards all these years as the one thing they're going to look forward to. But you could tell they're putting less and less emphasis on actually having their finger on the pulse of music today. They barely even have a pulse left themselves. And the MTV Video Music Awards very much assimilate the same way that the same way that corporate radio does. They're out of touch. The people that they have on the air have no rapport with these artists. And if they do, it's like, it's so sacrosanct, it's so saccharine, it's so bullshit. And I hate the way that music is portrayed in America now. It's only streaming that matters. It's only YouTube and TikTok. Thank goodness for that. But otherwise, it doesn't matter what any of these other legacy outlets are. If they're owned by a big corporation, they just know how to fuck it up. And they consistently do. 40 years of MTV Video Music Awards, I would think they could stop doing it. I mean, they don't need to keep embarrassing themselves like this. Like, there is this contrivity of like, well, we'll talk about it. This is something to talk about, you know, middle of the week. They couldn't put on the weekends anymore because it doesn't get any ratings anymore. But then again, award shows as well are just not considered. I didn't even remember the Emmy Awards were going on a couple weeks ago, and it's like, who cares? I think the Grammys and the Golden Globes still kind of matter a bit. But I mean, you can kind of tell it's like we don't even have the MCs to go ahead and host these events, first of all. And then we're here and it's like, you know, we have artists that are coming in, but it's like in the same way you watch the New Year's Eve celebrations. And, you know, there are not a lot of people that are doing particular shows that really bring off artists that are still relevant today. Like, think about it. New Year's Eve every year, Ryan Seacrest hosts, and it's like, ugh. I do not watch any of the New Year's Eve programming, nor would I watch for some of the acts that they have on there. Because it's also that old mindset of like, you know, let's just pick some people that sound kind of good that, you know, we can get. We're not going to necessarily pay attention or do any research on who's really popular out there. We're just going to work on those that might work. And that's pretty much it. Like, I mean, I imagine they only take like about a month or so to even plan this whole thing out. It's not like a whole long, year-long process. I'm pretty sure of that. So, I hate it. I hate that MTV has turned to what it is. It used to be so much more relevant. I mean, hell, if even MTV would have like a YouTube channel and make that kind of important and do something where they would be consolidating the music and like acting as a conduit, as a place for people to learn where to find new music and find new artists. But MTV doesn't want to do that. And no one else does. What does that tell you? Obviously, when record stores are no longer relevant anymore, it's the same way. It was the first sign of what was a legacy style of music and making money. Like I said, 800 million CDs in 2001. And the MTV Video Music Awards at that time, I guarantee you, were big, right? Let me put it like this. When you had that much going on at that time in 2001, what did the VMAs have in that moment? Let's talk about that. So some of the highlights of the 2001 Video Music Awards. Michael Jackson performing at the end of NSYNC's performance. Britney Spears with the albino python. Andy Dick portraying a fictional cousin of Christina Aguilera. You had the recreation of the Lady Marmalade song with Christina Aguilera, Little Kim, Maya Pink, and Misty Misdemeanor Elliott was the number one song that year. Held at the Metropolitan Opera House in New York. And MTV had a full set of their own people hosting in this event. At that time, Kurt Loder, Suchin Pak were hosting for MTV News. Chris Connolly, John Norris, Sway, Gideon Yago. These are all these folks on MTV News, which was such a great thing back in the day. There was just so much going on. Jennifer Lopez performed. Linkin Park, Alicia Keys. Jay-Z performed Izzo. Stained, U2, and Missy Elliott. And Britney Spears. And then think about who was presenting awards. Destiny's Child, you had Janet Jackson, Backstreet Boys, Will Ferrell, Jessica Simpson, Dale Earnhardt Jr., Will Smith, Christopher Walken, Mark Wahlberg, Shakira, Busta Rhymes, John Bon Jovi, Johnny Knoxville and Snoop Dogg, Outkast, Kid Rock, and Mick Jagger. Like, come on. And Jimmy Fox hosting that year. That's serious. A serious Video Music Awards show. For the Video Music Awards themselves and the amount of millions of viewers that they had at the time. 2001, 10 million viewers watching. And the last time they hit 10 million viewers was 2013. And the highest that it's been in the last 20 years, 2011. That's it. Oh, Keke Palmer was 2 years ago, I believe. And Nicki Minaj hosted last year. That's right. I have a few more stories to jump into before we go and wrap things up. Podcast deals that come out. Variety reports on this about how hosts like Joe Rogan, the Kelsey brothers, Alex Cooper are landing big bucks deals in podcasting. And this in the last couple months, Joe Rogan has a $250 million multi-year deal with Spotify. Alex Cooper of Call Her Daddy, we talked about this a few weeks ago extensively. $125 million with SiriusXM. The Kelsey brothers now signing their New Heights show with Amazon's Wondery for more than $100 million. Among others. And each of these shows we're talking about, some were occupied among the top 22 U.S. shows on Spotify in 2023. The head of CAA's podcast department, broken the SmartList deal with SiriusXM, the Jason Bateman, Will Arnett show, says it's obviously a very healthy sign for the industry that these checks are being written for big talent. Now, these 9-figure deals that have been signed for these podcast stars have been rooted in solid projections of the ad dollars they could generate. These are tested shows. They aren't big risks the companies are taking. One downside of the trend is that as podcast companies spend big money for big shows, it reduces some opportunity for smaller, less known podcasters. As long as we still have our way to go ahead and continue to go ahead and go along and make a little bit of money here and there, that's okay with me. SiriusXM is looking to go and do this right now with their podcast lineup because they might see Howard Stern ready to hang up his hat. As his contract with SiriusXM will be expiring at the end of 2025. And when there was speculation about Howard Stern not renewing, SiriusXM's content chief Scott Greenstein said on the company's April earnings call that if a singular talent, quote unquote, opts to retire, you come up with a strategy of what is your current demo and your target audience, and you look at what can be best suited for that at any given time. Now, one thing that I thought was very interesting when it comes to the deregulation of these big corporations for media, Ari Emanuel, the CEO of Endeavor, he predicts that media consolidation will leave just 5 or 6 major content providers, and that it's a healthy enough ecosystem, he says. So he's Endeavor Group Holdings and TKO Group CEO Ari Emanuel. I know I talk about him quite a bit because TKO Group Holdings holds WWE, right? They are they are the owner of WWE right now, along with UFC. And so I pay attention to what he's saying here because he's made a lot of work in terms of media deals. He says, quote, I think you're in a situation where you have Paramount, Warner, Disney, Comcast, there's other players. I think there will be 5 or 6 remaining streaming or content providers, Netflix, Amazon. We're all going to see what happens with Apple, YouTube. He says it to the IMG Redbird Summit. And he says then we'll probably have 2 remaining over the next 5 years in that group. And for some people that supply them, whether it be actors, writers, directors, non-scripted, or sports, that's a very good, healthy ecosystem with people that will have very big and deep pockets that will approximately take 2 to 3 years to play out, he says. So he thinks it's okay to have that small amount of big companies handling the mainstream, of which these companies are not going to look at any other content outside of the mainstream. So that's what they're going to expect to kind of just stay in there to get consolidation instead of watching everything on the internet. He says that everybody's jumping the gun on linear assets and it's all over. Everything's binary. More people tonight will watch CBS and Netflix, and that's going to continue for the next 20 years, he says. You're going to have different modulations in that trajectory, and it's going to be this convergence. This is Jerry Cardinal, the co-founder of Redbird Capital Partners, also speaking with Ari Emanuel on this panel at this event. Quote, the reality is that most people aren't going to subscribe to 18 different streaming services. That's why there's a value proposition in the bundle. There will be some that will. So the whole part is to have linear right alongside streaming and offer a menu of opportunities to economically get the IP holders what they need, get the distributors what they need, and obviously you're going to keep having these skirmishes. Well, look, the fact that the linear that's trying to be somewhat still relevant today is because they were trying to put all their ducks in a row with streaming and it did not work. So now they have to try to boost up both. And as we talked about earlier this year, quite expansively here on the Broadcasters Podcast, of course, they're trying to bundle everything, which makes themselves not much different than what cable is. An interesting story, a study from iHeartMedia in conjunction with Malcolm Gladwell's Pushkin Industries. They put out a second annual study called the New American Consumer 2.0. And one of the major points they found out is that nearly half of Americans, or 44%, feel ignored by advertisers, highlighting stark differences between a large group of Americans and the personal beliefs and values of the marketers that are trying to reach them with products and services, and providing insights to help marketers avoid the pitfalls of their own biases to understand and better serve these key audience segments. A disconnect between the average marketer's life and that of the average consumer. Yeah. So they're saying that advertising is not gelling with consumers. And that 72% of consumers don't want to buy products from brands that are ignoring them, and 75% would be willing to pay a little more to support a brand that shares their values, according to what they're saying here. The study also revealed that consumers are increasingly feeling creeped out by marketers' reliance on hyper-targeting, data, and AI, with 67% saying they're hate being targeted by ads. And when it comes to marketing, 82% of consumers say they are influenced by their communities, friends, family, and religious leaders, notably not by professional influencers, potentially revealing a new way to target audiences by messaging those around them who play important roles in their lives, like everyday people. Everyday people sounds good. Yeah. The chief marketing officer at iHeartMedia, Gail Troberman, says that, quote, we marketers have more data at our fingertips than ever before, yet almost half of American consumers are feeling ignored. So here's the thing about radio here. The fact that radio is out of touch with how to advertise to their audience. That's something important. That tells you that radio is failing at the one thing that their big corporate betters are expecting them to do. Be able to get advertising out there that's going to get consumers to buy. They're not. Because they feel out of touch. They feel disconnected by the advertising they're listening to. Yeah, I would if I had to go and keep listening to another Progressive or Home Depot or McDonald's or whatever else ads out there, or some, out of touch like this supplement or this health product, and here's an 800 number for you, or a website. Yeah, a lot of out of touch advertising. The advertising's actually not targeting consumers on things they actually need. And they're also saying that the marketers and the consumers are two different types of people. Yes, they are. Marketers are in their own little, iPhone, their own little ivory tower. They're not aware, nor are they in touch with most of their consumers. I thought that was quite interesting. And they're not wrong. And this study actually tells them the whole point. Now, as I wrap up the episode tonight, we're not going to get to an hour. I'm just done. I want to take from a story from a Journal of Musical Things that did talk about the MTV VMAs last night. Alan Cross, he writes, quote, "Did anyone even notice that MTV held the VMAs last night?" And then he, very sarcastically, which I find funny, is that he actually talks about that MTV still insists on hosting a Video Music Awards event every September, despite the fact that the channel features nothing but reruns of ridiculousness these days. But okay, let's go through the charade. Taylor Swift setting a record nominated 12 categories and winning in 7. 29 lifetime wins, 4 more than Beyonce. Post Malone, second with 11 nominations and 5 wins. Eminem broke Peter Gabriel's award for the most wins by a male solo artist now with 15. And amongst all the pop and hip hop, there were a couple of rock awards. Lenny Kravitz somehow beat Green Day, the Foo Fighters, Bon Jovi, Coldplay, and Kings of Leon. The alternative category, the winner was Benson Boone, who won over Bleachers, Hozier, Imagine Dragons, Teddy Swims, and Linkin Park. The list shows you how dire the alt-rock scene is right now, or how out of touch MTV is. And I think, Alan Cross, you are absolutely correct. And I appreciate you making that point, because it is. MTV is 40 years is a good stop off. Maybe we can go and stop it right now. We don't need to go and continue that charade anymore. It's done. And radio, they don't need to go and keep the same route of MTV. Maybe they just find themselves a way to get themselves out of this funk. That's why I hope the radio stations implode, where all these stations that these corporate entities own get sold off someday, because they can't keep holding on to their debt. Come back for another Broadcasters Podcast. Remember that content is king, and the control of your content is in your hands.